What are some ridiculous history facts?
Silent scan.
In 1895, the entire state of Ohio had only 2 cars. Both cars managed to still smash into each other.
Silent scan.
Abraham Lincoln's son, Robert Todd Lincoln, was present at 3 different presidential assassinations. After McKinley, he decided not to accept any more invitations.
Silent scan.
When Alexander the Great was a child, he was reprimanded by a teacher for wastefully throwing 2 whole fistfuls of rare incense into a sacrificial fire. When he was an adult and captured Gaza, which happened to be the prime agricultural source of the incense he wasted, he sent home 18 tons of it home to the same teacher as a gift.
Silent scan.
Karl Marx's great-great-grandson has a YouTube video of him doing parkour, called exclamation marks.
Silent scan.
Former US President Andrew Jackson was approached by a man who pulled a gun on him. Smaller history fact: this was the first assassination attempt on a US president. The man pulled the trigger and the cap went off, but the gunpowder failed to light. The man pulled a second gun and fired, but the gunpowder again failed to light. The assassin tried to get away, but not before Andrew Jackson got him and beat the shit out of him with a cane.
Silent scan.
Potatoes were not very popular as a food in France. Like they were seen as fit only for animals. Not only that, but they were considered generally not digestible by humans. So a pharmacist named Parmentier knew they were good food and wanted to popularize them among the working class. So he got a 2-acre farm to grow potatoes and placed armed guards around it at all times. People assumed armed guards meant something very valuable was growing there, so they began to steal the potatoes. That's how potatoes became popular in France's working class.
Silent scan.
During the Cold War, there was an idea to drop XL condoms labeled medium onto the Soviets, to make them think we were anatomically superior and be more afraid of fighting us. Easily my favorite part of American history.
Silent scan.
Pepsi once had the 6th largest military in the world after the price of Russian vodka couldn't cover their deal for Pepsi products. So they traded 17 submarines, a frigate, a cruiser, and a destroyer for a trade deal. Fun fact, the president of PepsiCo at the time told the National Security Advisor, "We are disarming the USSR faster than you are."
Silent scan.
Henry Cavendish. The man who was vital in the discovery of gases and discovered hydrogen. He inherited a ton of money from his uncle and built a special castle, I think. He was incredibly introverted, so it was designed so that he never had to meet or see any of his servants. He communicated with them through notes only. He did, however, appreciate other scientists coming to visit and talk. His works mostly came after his death, of course, but I found this guy interesting.
Silent scan.
During the Viking era, there was a leader named Sigurd. He allied with a Viking warlord named Thorstein. He wanted to conquer more land and expand his territory. He had already been very successful in doing so. This was until he feuded with another leader called Marl Bucktoothed or Marl Tusk, as his front 2 teeth were abnormally large and buck-toothed. They decided to settle their matters on the battlefield and both agreed on bringing 40 men each for the battle. However, Sigurd ignored the terms and brought 80 men. Bucktoothed had realized he had been betrayed, but did not give up. They killed a number of Sigurd's men, but alas, they were overpowered and were all killed. Here's the catch: after the battle, Sigurd ordered his men to behead all the enemies and tie them to their saddles as trophies. However, as Sigurd rode home in victory, the severed head of Bucktoothed pierced his leg, which led to an infection, killing him soon after.
Silent scan.
Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died on the same day. July 4, 1826. The 50th anniversary of them both signing the Declaration of Independence. Adams's last words were, "Thomas Jefferson survives." He was wrong by about 5 hours.
Silent scan.
The Battle of Bull Run, during the American Civil War, was called the Picnic Battle because so many civilians from Washington went on picnics on the sidelines and watched. But once the battle actually started, and the Union started to get its ass kicked, they all ran away, running over injured soldiers and dead bodies, and generally disrupting the battle. This was actually a relatively common thing during the Civil War. I know it happened at Gettysburg too.
Silent scan.
The Massachusetts colony banned celebrating Christmas. During that time period, many people used it as an excuse to get hammered and party. Another tradition was that the young adults would cross-dress, then go door to door singing songs and demanding food. This clearly doesn't fit with Puritan lifestyle, so the governor banned public celebrations. People could still celebrate it in their homes if they didn't get too rowdy. I think it was unbanned when Massachusetts became a state, but didn't become mainstream until Christmas became a national holiday. Nashville briefly legalized prostitution during the Civil War. Union soldiers stationed there kept getting syphilis, so the no prostitutes were put on a large barge in the river. I'm a little fuzzy on what happened after that, but no, it didn't work very well. So it was legalized, and prostitutes had to be registered or get a license, I can't remember which, and we're required to have STD checks. This lowered the amount of prostitutes with syphilis because it was getting caught and treated. That lowered the amount of soldiers getting syphilis and made the army happy. It was outlawed shortly after the war ended though.
Silent scan.
The shortest war occurred between Zanzibar and the British Empire, lasting around 45 minutes. Both the British and the Zanzibar Sultanate fielded a couple thousand men with a few boats, however the war ended with a single Brit wounded. Meanwhile the Zanzibarians suffered 500 dead or wounded, including civilians, and their entire navy, a yacht, 2 boats and a shore battery, gone.
Silent scan.
The longest ever US presidential inauguration speech was made by William Henry Harrison on March 4, 1841. The day had terrible weather, yet Harrison chose to deliver his speech nonetheless, running 84.45 words. In fact, the speech was so long, and the weather so terrible, that Harrison caught pneumonia and died on April 4, making him the shortest reigning US president ever.
Silent scan.
The Spartans never built a city wall, figuring that their reputation alone would mean no one would dare attack them. But, during the Persian War, the Persians, who had already burned Athens twice, hired a Greek guide to take them to Sparta. But when they got there, they saw a kinda crap looking city without even a wall. They figured there was no way this place could be the mighty Sparta they had heard so much about. So they figured the Greek was lying, and thus Sparta was spared.
Silent scan.
In 1766, sailors for the HMS Dolphin were holed up at Hawaii, where they learned local women would trade iron for sex. Iron nails were used to hold the boards of the ship together. Eventually, the ship started falling apart in the harbor.
Silent scan.
So I'm pretty sure everyone knows about Dracula. The man that it was inspired from was a Romanian ruler called Vlad. So basically he had some conflicts with Turkey, and one night, when the Turkish soldiers were chilling in a camp prepared to attack in the morning, Vlad told the Romanian soldiers to dress up like them and attack when they were sleeping. The Turkish soldiers were so confused that they started attacking each other and killed like half of the army. Then Vlad just left and let them fight. I think this is so genius and so dumb at the same time.
Silent scan.
Teddy Roosevelt's daughter Alice was amazing. 1. Because a white man sideswept the car her and her chauffeur were in, while calling the chauffeur a "black bastard." She, I shit you not, leaned out of the window and yelled for the whole street to hear, "Shut up, you white son of a bitch," too, when asked to control his daughter, who, to just recap, smoked on the roof of the White House, swore a lot, drive around with men, and owned a pet snake. Teddy replied, "I can either be president of the United States or control Alice. I cannot possibly do both." 3. When it came for the time of the Roosevelts to move out of the White House, Alice buried a voodoo doll of Nellie Taft, the new first lady, in the front yard. She, along with her cousin Alina Roosevelt, were also known as the "hissing cousins" for their constant neck and neck, lifelong rivalry.
Silent scan.
In 1898, author Morgan Robertson wrote a novella titled The Wreck of the Titan, or Futility. The plot involved a fictional ocean liner, the Titan, which sinks in the North Atlantic after striking an iceberg. In the story, Titan was described as the biggest passenger ship in the world. It carried the minimum number of lifeboats allowed, resulting in a large number of her passengers and crew perishing 14 years later. RMS Titanic sank in strikingly similar circumstances.
Silent scan.
The legend of the White Death in Finland during the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union. This was a sniper who has been estimated to have at least 500 confirmed kills in this war that lasted 1939 to 1940 before WWII. This man's name was Simo Hoiho. The stories basically go that he was so ridiculous that the Russians were scared to go into the forest where he was rumored to be. Simo was known to have made his shots without using a scope, so iron sights, due to the cold weather and because he preferred it that way. He also would eat snow while making shots to conceal his breath. This was in -20 to -40 weather. He killed many enemy soldiers and even counter snipers that were sent to kill him during his time in service. The stories go on and on about this man. He was hit eventually by an explosive round from a Russian soldier, which took half of his face off, but he did not die then. He actually died of old age in 2002 at the age of 96. This man is an absolute war legend.
Silent scan.